And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'm delighted to welcome back to the set Coach Bobby Sanchez from the Newland High School Whalers, head football coach. And Coach, you got a year under your belt, and I'm glad to have you back on.
Yeah, almost a year. Yeah.
Well, you got a season under your belt, that's for sure.
Yeah, and they invited me back, so
That's a good sign.
Yeah, good sign. Yeah.
You know, and I'm looking forward to an engaging conversation and on your thoughts on the status of your team and where you thought things met your expectations. I'm sure there's some areas where you're looking to see some improvement moving into next season in 2024.
Always, yeah.
But from where you picked up the program with a couple of wins, you ended up with a season at 6-4. So you tripled the amount of victories, which was a step in the right direction. So I'll toss it to you in terms of when you sat in here last March, you were relatively newly hired. Did you find this season that met your expectations, or what worked well, and perhaps what do you think you need to hone in on?
Yeah, no, I think the reflecting on the season and just the year in general, you know, the 8-9 months that I told my seniors after the 9 months that we're going to be together, it's going to feel like 9 years because, you know, Marty, you know, you played. It's a thing when you're with people almost every day. You know, football's played in the fall, but you prepare for it from, you know, March, April, when you know, and it goes all the way for 6 months of preparation, you know, leading up to it if you're trying to, you know, run a good program. And I will say when I took the job, I knew that one of the things I said last year is that looking at the roster, I was you know, thinking to myself, you know, this is a better squad than their record shows. And I knew what I had coming back with seniors. I knew I had a strong senior class, and they really answered every challenge, every demand that I put in front of them. They answered it. They bought in early, you know, in the spring they bought in, and then it carried through. The summer was the most aggressive summer that I've ever had as a coach personally in my 10 years. Going to Yale in June, UConn in June, going to the Grip and Rip It 7-on-7 tournament in New Canaan, you know, where we stayed overnight, and then, you know, doing Central Connecticut's camp at the end of the summer, you know, and then getting into team camp. I mean, it was every other week we had something pretty major going on, and I had a moment where I was like, you know, am I burning these guys out a little too much? But then I also thought, I mean, it's our first year. We've got a lot of install offense, defense, specials to get in, and we want to feel, you know, the word amongst the coaching staff was confident. You know, we wanted confidence, and we talked about confidence is, you know, ability plus preparation.
Yeah.
And if
well, I mean, the team you inherited. I mean, I think that squad had not remotely performed to potential. So you had to kind of rebuild from a pretty low point.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about it was the whole time we communicated to them that we're a 35-man strong team, you know, varsity-wise. We had about 35 varsity-capable players. But I expressed to them, and my coaches agreed with me, that we were probably the most unique group. And we knew this back at Yale camp in June when we're going against Daniel Hand and Cheshire and Staples, who won the state championship, and West Haven, who was in the state championship against Staples. You know, we're going against all these teams, and we're hanging with these teams, and we're battling with these teams. And even though our numbers were a lot lower than theirs, you could see that we belonged on the field. Yeah. And even in some cases, we kind of asserted ourselves.
How important is it for these kids to be on these college campuses? I mean, were you playing in the Yale Bowl?
Yeah, so we
I
first
mean,
day.
that's a pretty awesome venue.
Yeah, no, first day. Yeah, and I took some pictures. I should share them with you. But the first day there was a shift in the schedule, and we ended up going with Staples and Daniel Hand and West Haven. You know, two teams that won the state championship in Staples and Hand, and one team in West Haven that lost the state championship on last play, and that was the foursome in the Yale Bowl. And mind you, we're coming off a 2-8 season, so the fact that was day one was pretty awesome. And me myself, when I was in youth and then high school, we would go to Northwestern University, in Chicago, and we would camp there. And so I've been used to those experiences, but
I mean, 'cause we've got some kids, quite frankly, I don't think they've been out of New London.
Yeah.
To any extent. I mean, they're pretty limited.
Well, what's funny is I think this season, between going to Bridgeport and then going to, E.O. Smith up in Storrs for JV and Stratford, I mean, they're probably twice as well traveled after this season as they were. And I was speaking with somebody about the potential or the proposal for the alliance-based schedule, and a lot of coaches are worried about transportation and distance traveled. And I'm looking back at our schedule, and I was like, I had 4 road games that were over an hour each. So what's the difference if we have to travel again? Because we had to do that this year in a regular season schedule. So, but I think those experiences, I think right off the bat, kind of expressed to the guys, hey, it's going to be different. We're going to do more. We're going to do things big, and if you buy in and you commit and you stick it out, these are the types of things that we're going to experience. And we had I think it was after the E.O. Smith game, or it was after East Lyme. After East Lyme, which was our 3rd loss, we basically we came up with this. The coaching staff came up with this mantra, which was make Killingly matter. And the whole premise of the middle of the season was get to Killingly, which means that we have to beat Wyndham and a couple other teams, Woodstock, and get to the Killingly game with something at stake, so that we're playing in a high stakes game. And sure enough, we got to 5-3. Killingly, I think, was also 5-3 at the time. So basically, the two of us are playing for a potential playoff spot. And the fact that we got to that point in the season, I was extremely proud of, because after that, the East Lyme game, we talked about it. It was a heartbreaker. They could have easily folded up shop, and they could have easily let the season kind of just fizzle out, but they didn't. And to that, especially that senior group, this 23 class, which is
But Killingly in recent years has had a pretty strong program. I mean, they're not. Years ago, it was not, but I think in recent years they've kind of built a pretty strong farm boy type program there. They've got some big kids, and they move people around.
Yeah, no, Coach Neal, I've known Coach Neal since when I was at Valley, we scrimmaged Killingly preseason, and I met Coach Neal the first time then. I think that was like 2016, 2017, and I have known him, from a distance, and just these last 8-9 months, I've obviously gotten to know him better, and there's a lot to be said about finding an identity, or and not just culture, because culture is everything. Culture is how you carry yourselves, how you communicate. Everything you can possibly think of is contributing to the culture of a program. Your identity as a program, if you can establish that, that's really what the kids buy into, is the identity of the program, and their identity is they're going to be the tougher team every time they step on the field. It's very similar to North Haven's mindset, and North Haven has had success for so long because when they step on the field, they think that they are the tougher team. Yeah. And if you get 40, 50 kids to buy into that mindset, you've got a pretty powerful thing. Whether you are the better team or not, if that's the mindset, you're always going to be in games.
Well, one of the things that I had the always enjoy watching doing high school athletics and football, the boys and girls basketball squads. And this year I was able to get to three games. And as we were talking before we came on the air, two of them were heartbreakers. The E.O. Smith, and I mean, I say tongue-in-cheek, I mean, E.O. Smith, I didn't even know they had a football team. And others who I spoke to says, well, they're known for their soccer program, which, you know, that's here nor there. And then East Lyme, I mean, both games where we had pretty good-sized leads that slipped away. And, you know, those two games may have been the difference between, you know, making the state tournament.
No, they were.
And not.
Yep, they were.
And I hope that, you know, that the young men get a grip on that. I mean, that's how close it is. I mean, it's not like you're light years away. You're this close.
Yeah, no,
and mistakes, and you know, allowing the other team back in the game, and you got to have your pedal to the metal. Every minute of every quarter.
Yeah, no, to that point, you know, and obviously throughout the course of a football game, you know, there's several plays that can be made throughout the course of a football game, and but in those two instances, you know, there were 2-3 plays against East Lyme that if we make them defensively, we win the game, and there were 2-3 plays against E.O. Smith that if we make them offensively, we win the game, and you know, I'll save my my opinion of our playoff system for some other time. But I personally, I went to the first round playoff. I went to 2 first round playoff games within our class.
Yep.
I'll leave the teams out of it. But the teams that competed at 6-4, they had similar records to us. They were not as good as we were, and we would have competed stronger, and we would have battled longer, especially coming off a Thanksgiving Day win against.
And that was a good win.
It was, and I think we, you know, the interesting thing about that, and I spoke to the guys about that after the season, was that the win against NFA on Thanksgiving, after all of the hype, you know, the national recognition and everything, it was tremendous. One of the best experiences that I've ever had in football. But it did kind of cloak the fact that we were essentially 2 plays away from being 8-2, which was our goal the entire time. This 8 months that we were at this, 9 months we were at this, the goal was to go from 2-8 to 8-2. And a lot of people, when I said that, looked at me like I had 3 heads. But I mean, we were, as you said, we were plays away from being 8-2. So our mantra going into this off season is 2 plays better, and in some cases 1 play better.
Yeah, I mean, an observation that I've made with the games I've seen, and it's been I think an issue with New London over time, is penalties, and penalties never seem to come at a good time. They always come at a rotten time. And they thwart drives or award first downs to the other team, keep their drives going or kill our own, and it can be very, very makes it that much more difficult to succeed. You almost have to work twice as hard to.
True. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something that's on high on your agenda, is to cut back on some of the. Some happen, and then there's also, I would call, some careless stuff. I mean, it kills me when I see offsides in motion, and you know, to me that's just lack of, you know, the kids. You know, God, you gotta. That's a discipline issue. The kids have got to pay attention to what's going on, or if they get involved with a scrape with the other team, and keep your hands to yourself. You don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, no. So we have on Mondays after each game, you know, in the season, we have what's called our Brotherhood Circle, and our Brotherhood Circle is, I actually got it from the Naval Academy. We get around in a circle, seniors in the inside, then juniors and sophomores, and one by one, we have guys jump in the middle of the circle, and they state their name and they state what they feel they did incorrectly during the game, and then we do a couple up downs for each player. It's a practice in accountability, but it's also a practice in awareness and reflection and understanding. Well, did we win or did we lose, and how did the mistakes that we made affect the outcome? And one thing I will say in the first half of the season was that a lot of the false starts, some holding calls, whether they were valid or invalid.
Nope, they've been called.
They've been called, right, exactly. And I've always told, and I will say one thing that my coaches, the players, they all did a tremendous job of was, and I got several compliments on this throughout the season, was the way we conducted ourselves with the officials. And I asked them, I didn't tell them, I asked them, I said, please let me talk to the officials. I've never seen an assistant coach or a player talk an official out of a call. And I said, please let me talk to the official. You all focus on your jobs, and I will interact with them. And my coaches did a fantastic job of it, and the players followed suit. And the first half of the season, I would say a lot of that had to do with our ambition, especially and to a fault my ambition, because we do have a complex offense. Our offense does have several elements of it that are advanced for this level. We run several run pass options. We ask our quarterbacks to evaluate things at the line of scrimmage. We have plays within our cadence calls where we're switching the play right before the ball snapped, and the communication has to be there across the board. So where other coaches may scale back, and the phrase is keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
I've never been that way as a coach. I've always been ambitious, because my thought is if you raise the bar and the expectation, the players will eventually rise to it if they really are bought in. And the one thing, oddly enough, I was just having a conversation a few days ago about this, was if you look at our offensive production from earlier in the season to the last 3-4 games, especially if you look at Wyndham and NFA, we're rolling on offense. And there's really not much that either of them could do to stop us. And those were cleaner games. We played very clean games the last 4 or 5 games of the year. And lo and behold, coincidentally, you win 4 out of the last 5 games because you're playing cleaner football. But I also think a lot of that had to do with just the fact that the kids were getting comfortable. They were getting comfortable, they were getting confident, they understood the concepts, they understood what they had to do, and then when you understand what you have to do, you find yourself in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. And things do take time. I mean, you're a new coach with a new system, and you have so the kids.
I'm laughing because I forget that sometimes.
Well, I mean, the young men have got to learn what you're trying to accomplish and what you want them to do, and in what fashion, and as well as your staff. And needless to say, you had improvement. I mean, from the grandstand, it appeared, at least to me, that the young men were buying in. They were doing their best. They weren't quitting. That's for damn sure.
Sure, agreed 100%. Yeah, I would not fault them or take anything away from them as far as their effort. I mean, the effort was there, every game, every second. At no point in time, my phrase to them was, there's no quit in this group, and there was definitely not, and that's a credit to the coaching staff. That's a credit to the culture that we had been establishing. And I said this when we first met. The coaches that I was able to retain, Liddell Pemberton, Cassie Fletcher, Tim Kwashka, and then a couple of coaches, Marcus, Kevin, Rel, that I brought in, all having ties to New London and all having a pretty extensive coaching background.
I think that means a lot too, and I think the kids respond well to the guys that have played in the program and buy into the Whaler pride.
Without a doubt, yeah. No, and it's authentic. It's genuine. The connection is there. It doesn't feel like they're hired guns. It doesn't feel like they're coming in to boost their coaching profile. It doesn't feel like they're there to flaunt their offensive scheme or their defensive scheme. When there's that genuine connection and it's about the greater goal and that pride. I mean, what better can you drum on than pride? There's nothing else, no better motivator than pride for something bigger than yourself. And that was definitely the message, I think. And I know that helped with the buy-in, and I know that helped with just understanding the overall goal. And as it's bittersweet because you felt that on Thanksgiving. I felt that on Thanksgiving. There was a moment where, again, because in all of this, I'm the outsider. I'm the one that came into this, and everyone else around me has a pretty strong connection to New London. And after the Thanksgiving Day game, I kind of stepped back and I was watching them all, celebrate with each other. And I kind of, at that moment, there was kind of a realization there that, like, oh, this is a shared experience, and this is joy, and this is something that is bigger than football. It's cultural, it's universal, and
the community is looking forward to getting back into it and buying in too. So, when it's not just wins and losses, that is it's important. Mm-hmm. But the fact that the kids are exhibiting a very, very positive action on the field, mm-hmm. and they're responding positively to you guys and the coaches, and that they're winning and winning smartly, and looking. New Orleans got a pretty long and sustained tradition of good play, mm-hmm. good teams, and folks in the community have enjoyed watching them and supporting them over time. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a strong desire for many to want to recapture that.
Yeah, no, I think that people enjoy seeing young people succeed, because one thing that we all share, all of us as human beings, we share is no matter how far in life you get, you've got that X hat to remind you. No matter how far you get in life, the one thing that you can relate to is that high school experience. And now you may have had a different high school experience, but all of us went to school. And that's why everybody goes so nuts for college, is because if you go to college, then now you're sharing that experience of going to that university with all the other people that went to that university. And so I think that relation back to that time period and then watching young people succeed is it's a great feeling, yeah. And I think
and this idea of this X hat, this was former coach Juan Roman's
yep.
idea,
mm-hmm.
and he was on a state championship team in '83,
yep.
and a very, very fine squad. And the X, folks, it means that yours truly is an ex New London High School football player. It's not a Malcolm X hat. It's a ex-New London football. And then on the backside here, we've got my class, which is 72s. And needless to say, I've been a long time since I've been in high school. But it does develop an esprit de corps when you're at a game and you see these X hats sprinkled throughout the grandstand. And all of us have that little common thread, whether you've been out of school for 50 years or you just graduated last year, mm-hmm. That we played football. And you can't buy that hat. You've got to be on the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we just went through it with this recent group. The fittings and then talking about with them at the banquet. We had Major, Coach Roman's son was our guest speaker at our banquet, which is kind of a great combination of the two. And if I'm being honest, I'm a bit jealous because it's a great fraternity, it's a great brotherhood, and it just it does it shows, you know, a little bit of differentiation, which anybody that's an athlete, anybody that played sports, if they try to tell you that they don't enjoy being a little different from the average person, they're not being honest with themselves. You
Well,
know,
as I told the young men who were on the program with you when you came on last spring, as we were taught when I was a young fella, I mean, you are, as New London high school football players, you are special. And your classmates and other students in the school know you play football, and they look up to you.
Sure. Yep.
And whether you understand it or not, believe me, they do. And that you know, you have to tend to business. You've got to behave yourself. You've got to be a role model. You can't be a dope. You can't be a wise guy. You got to go to class. You got to do as well as you can in your classes, and you've got to be a gentleman and treat people with respect, and because you're representing not only yourself but the team and the school and your community. And you know, when they buy in, that's part of the buy-in, I think, for the young men on the team.
I think to that point, I think most coaches would say, especially at this level, at high school, where you're still, you know, collegiately you're still developing players, but really at this level you're really molding, you know, you're molding young men, and I think most coaches would say, we're all paying it forward. We all, if you're doing it right, if you're going about coaching correctly and you're trying to develop the person, you know, holistically, you learned it from someone that did it for you, and I had coaches that helped me develop that level of self-awareness, which, you know, for what it's worth in our society today, it's at a premium. You know, there are people that are self-aware, they know how to be, they know how to act, and then there are people who don't. And sports has always been, athletics has always been a great motivator and a great tool for teaching that to young people. Is, you know, when you're on the bus, you have to act away. When you're doing a post-game interview, you have to act away. When you're, and it's not so much that you're changing the person that you are, you're just refining your ability to
You're being the best you can be.
Yeah, in any given situation, exactly, right. The best version of yourself in the given situation. And I mean, I don't know if there is a better lesson to learn as a 17, 18-year-old than that, because that's going to serve you better than any college degree. It's going to serve you better than you know, anything that you could learn in a classroom setting. Awareness, you know, awareness, accountability, integrity, these things that we learn in sports, that we all learn in sports, those are priceless things that become a part of your core person. And if you can develop those in a young man, I mean, wins, losses, they're important. That's why we do it. You know, we like the competition. You want to come out on top.
You're playing to win. You're not going out to lose.
Exactly right. But and then dealing with that, dealing with win and loss. You know, victory and defeat. That's another element of establishing your core person. How do you deal with success? How do you deal with failure?
Yep.
And those are all just intangible things that sports have done for people over generations.
And I think I found, and I believe, that football, more than perhaps any other team sport for sure, promotes levels of teamwork that you don't get in other sports. I mean, you can have a Michael Jordan on a basketball team, and a player can dominate. You can have Michael Jordan and four guys. But in football, if the left guard misses his block, Michael Jordan gets tackled in the backfield.
Or Walter Payton, right, for that matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get my point. I mean, it's just teamwork and doing your job and listening to your coaches. They actually know what they're talking about. And they're teaching you, you know, the skills to be successful. And you don't know more. And you have to learn, and you don't have to like your coaches or even your teammates, but you've got to learn to get along.
Agreed. Yes. It's challenging, and it's an interesting thing. The more intelligent that a young person is, at a young age, because they have intelligence but they don't yet have experience, and so it's difficult because they almost have to have an advanced understanding of humility. They need to be humble because you can't be coachable without being humble. You can't be coachable without being open-minded. And it's hard to do that when you're intelligent, because when you're intelligent and you're young, all you want to do is analyze things and you want to overthink things. And I know that because that's the kind of young athlete I was. And I can remember getting into arguments with my offensive coordinator over whether I should run a stop route or I should continue on a corner. And those are real conversations that I had, because at that point at 17, I was looking and I was evaluating the defense, middle of my route. And so I can relate to those situations and those individuals. And sometimes those individuals end up being the hardest to coach or the most challenging, but then they also can at times be the most rewarding, because they sometimes have the highest ceiling. But as far as team sports are concerned, some of the other team sports, especially basketball, hockey, and soccer, the coordination and the movement and the spacing, it can be beautiful at times. And I coached basketball. I watch hockey and soccer regularly, and it can be beautiful when you see 2-3 passes happen and it's just everything is flowing, and then the goal is the score, and the result. Football, I feel like, is different, because even when football is going well for you, it's still hard. There still is an opposition and 11 guys on the other side of the ball, offensively or defensively, that they are just trying to oppose whatever you were trying to do. And that stalemate, that back and forth, battle, if you will, is it's hard to match in any other sport. And,
well, I agree. And as an old lineman, I mean, the games are won or lost on the line.
Agreed. Yeah.
And they don't, the linemen don't get much notoriety at any level. But if the offensive line's not holding their blocks or making any blocks, it's hard for your skill players to be skilled.
So I got a treat for you this spring, because we're doing a big man academy this spring, and it's going to be a New London County big man academy. We're going to go for like 6 weeks, like a month and a half, and then at the end we're going to try to coordinate a showcase for the linemen, so that we can get some. The goal or the plan is to get some O-line coaches from colleges, D-line coaches from colleges, and have them come down to New London and to evaluate the talent, because the skill kids, they have their 7-on-7s, they have their passing leagues, and they're constantly on showcase all the year. It's hard to showcase that left guard's ability to pull and get up through the hole, when he can't put pads on in the spring. Yeah. And so we're definitely, as a staff, we're trying to facilitate that potential recognition for our linemen, because the incentive for a lineman is the team. The incentive for most skill players is the ball. And that's why when a skill player makes a great block downfield, you celebrate it. When a lineman makes a great block, that's his job.
That's
and
correct.
It's on to the next play. I compare it to, I have a funny analogy with second baseman versus third baseman. When a third baseman muffs a ball, right, decently hit ball, ground ball, third baseman muffs it, it's like, oh man, hot corner. He got in front of it, gave up his body, did what he could. When a second baseman misses the same ground ball, everybody wants him off the team. They want him out of there, get a new guy in there. And I mean, it's just a matter of how you evaluate the positions.
Yep.
And line versus skill is not much different. And that's probably why I've coached defense all these years. Because on defense, it's just simple. Do your job, get to the football.
That's it.
But that's been one thing that I've really enjoyed about this opportunity as being now as a head coach, being able to work with both the offense and the defense. I played tight end in college for more years than I played linebacker. And so being able to now tap back into that offensive side of my own experience and my own recall is actually pretty fantastic, because watching LP call a play and then seeing our offense, those 11 guys execute it to perfection, it's a top level feeling, as far as sports are concerned.
Sure.
The coordination is just of 11 guys carrying out a play is pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Now, out of your group that's our seniors that should be graduating this spring, do you have a grip on how many of them may be considering or have been recruited to play at the next level, or not?
Yeah, no, we're right in the middle of recruiting, in the recruiting process right now. So part of the reason why I take, or not I, but we as a program decide to give some time off, because everybody's different. At the end of the year, there's some coaches that get right back into lifting, and they're like, they didn't miss a day. There's some coaches that go until they give a break until Christmas, and then when they come back from Christmas break, they're right back at it. I tend to go a little bit longer than that, because my focus after the end of the season is strictly on my seniors. And it's been like this since I was at Valley, because when I was at Valley, I really tried to really jump into the recruiting side of things. And everyone that knows that next level knows that December, going through bowl season, getting into New Year, and then now these last couple weeks before signing day in February, they know that this is critical time for recruiting for these seniors. And I would almost feel guilty if I just immediately shifted my focus, or shifted our focus, to the next year, and then did not devote at least 4, 5, 6 weeks to trying to land those seniors in the ideal situation. Kyle Parks is a perfect example right now. Kyle Parks has preferred walk-on opportunities with Temple. We've got UMass coming down to look at him. UConn is coming to look at him. There's several Division I level schools that are interested in him, and that to me says he's got the ability to play Division I football. That being said, I've only been working with Kyle for 9 months, so I haven't really been able to do even one full recruiting cycle with him. So the next thing we're looking at is post-grad opportunities with the Cheshire Academies, the Avon Old Farms. So deciding what his best route is going to be, and how it's going to get him on the best path. The kid gave me the last 9 months of his life almost every day. And so it's, at the very least, I can pay it back to him and try to get him on the path and have him have the experience that I had in college, which I would not trade for the world. So, we have, off the top of my head, there's about seven guys that are looking to play next level. They range from a couple guys who are, could be very, very good Division III players. I've got DJ Roberts, who's a wide receiver, moved here from New York, and he's runs a 4.40, which is Division I level speed, but he's still learning the game, and so he's looking at junior college opportunities. And there's a couple other guys, Contrell Witherspoon, Derek Burris, who are looking at kind of Division II level opportunities. So, and that's by far the hardest range to navigate, because there's 200 Division II schools in the country, and there's 150 Division I, FCS schools in the country. So trying to decide which is the best fit for them, it's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. So I've been trying to just
and these young men have also been maintaining their efforts in the classroom. So I mean, a lot of these schools aren't going to take you if you aren't. You can't be an intellectual dope. You got to be on top of you. Got to maintain your grades.
Yeah, no, I think I something that we communicated to them was I try not to rely on negative motivators or sad stories, but there have been, we all know there have been stories of guys who have the ability, but their lack of commitment in the classroom, their grades, their test scores, it got in the way, and it didn't let them accomplish their reach their potential and get on that path. And I think
we'll bring in a guy like a Major Roman in to speak to them. Here's a young man who, he's a New London guy, Yale, Ivy League, and played football 4 years. And also, he's a big man. I mean, he's not a little guy. I mean, but just to give you an idea, I mean, this is the Ivy League now. This is not Michigan and Washington. This is, I mean, what you're going to be competing against, what you're looking at moving up to the next level. Is, not everybody can play at the next level. Or maybe at the level that you think you can play at. Maybe you're more of a Division III guy than a Division I guy. Sure. You can still play football, but you're not going to be Desmond Howard doing one of these Heisman Trophy poses.
Yeah. No, it's funny you're using Michigan, is because my younger sister went to Michigan, and it's a thing where when kids are young, when they get into youth, you ask all of them, what do you want to do? I want to go to the NFL. And then you ask them as they start to get closer to high school and get closer to college, when they start watching college, because the college kids are so much closer in age, they go, oh, I want to go to the University of Michigan. For me, I wanted to go to the University of Miami when I was in high school. And it's a thing where you don't want to smother those ambitions. You want them to have the desire, because that's what's going to drive them.
Sure.
That desire to play at those high-level schools is what's going to drive them. But then the reality that sets in at some point is, okay, here's where you are as an athlete. Here is your ability. And those difficult conversations, if they're coming from someone that they trust, if they're coming from an assistant coach, if they're coming from the head coach, it's received easier, I think, and it's received more realistic. And until they understand it and they accept it, it's hard to have a realistic picture of what their actual potential is. And I'll say with this group that I'm working with now, these guys that just finished playing ball for us, is 4 or 5 of these guys, had you asked them in the summer if they were considering playing college ball, I don't really know what their answer would have been. But at the end of this season that we went through, they're definitively, I'm not done playing football, which is great, because it feels like they latched onto, they recaptured that desire they had when they were younger, which was, I want to play at the highest level that I can. The only thing that changes is, what is that level, as you were saying. So, but again, I think that there's
a lot of choices to be made. I mean,
without a doubt.
I mean, are you a player who maybe you could make the team at a higher level, but you're not going to play, or do you want to play at a 2 or 3 and play? How important is that to be?
That's why that's so difficult. Yeah, that range is so difficult, because a kid that maybe won't see the field till their junior year at a Division I school, maybe goes into a D3 school and they're a day 1 starter, or maybe they go to. I had a couple players that played for me at Valley that went to Southern, or went to Assumption, and they went to Division II schools, and their sophomore year they're on the field, on special teams, or they're rotating in at receiver, and it's difficult, because you ask the player, you say, what do you want to do? And basically the player's saying, well, I mean, I've been starting for my high school team for the last 2 years. How can you expect me to answer that? And the reality is you can't, because the kid doesn't know. They don't know if they are okay with redshirting and then sitting their redshirt freshman year, and then now it's year 3 and they haven't played in a live game in 2 years. Yeah, are they willing to do that? Some kids are, some kids aren't. Yeah. So it's difficult, especially now in today's world. Transfer portals and everything. It's
well, the movement of players. I mean, even at the high school level, has gotten to be. I'm not happy with it, but it is what it is, and you're at a point in your career where you have to deal with it. I just have to observe it.
Yeah.
Gnash my teeth.
Yeah. No, I don't. There was an article that just came out. There's a podcast, I think, and it was a debate over who has the more difficult job, the President of the United States or a college football coach, a Division I college football coach. And it was interesting, but because I for a position that is totally reliant upon the talent that you bring in to a school, and how quickly, and that's the meeting with these college coaches as we're doing this recruiting with our guys, hearing these coaches talk about after the season, they have to go back and recruit their own roster because they don't know who's going to stay, they don't know who's going to leave, and they're talking about that's the first 2-3 weeks after the season is them having conversations with their own guys in their own locker room about who's staying, who's going, so they even have an idea of what they need. Yeah. And then after that, they go into the portal and they look at the junior college network and they try to see what are players they can get quickly to come in to replace those guys that they might have lost or graduated. And then they go to the high school level and they start looking at high school prospects. And it's been an education for me, and this, this year coming back, Jack Philliston, Chris Jones, Tyree Barnes, Demo Fletcher. There's several guys on my returning squad who are definite college football players, athletes, and where they are going to end up. I would love to have that decision, or at least have a good idea about that decision before we get into the summertime, because then there's a lot to be said about feeling good about the plan that's in front of you, or the path that's in front of you, and the high level college recruits that commit, verbally at least by the summer. Well, then now they're going into their senior year, and they can basically play their senior year, not necessarily worrying if they're going to be a Division I player or a Division II player, but just where am I going to play? And there's a lot to be said for that peace of mind. And if between my efforts to establish the networks, Coach Fletcher, also an alum who's in the counseling department, getting us the transcripts, and all of us together as a group coordinating to try to get them those decisions as soon as possible in the process, it's going to have a residual effect. It's going to be better for us going forward, because that peace of mind now just leads to focus, and it leads to effort.
Now, do you feel that you've got a good group of youngsters coming up to fill? I mean, if you're losing a group of seniors, there's going to be some kids coming in from middle school. Our freshman ranks maybe didn't play much this past season, that ready to step up and be varsity players? Yeah,
so I mean, depth is definitely going to be a challenge. I'm not, it's a very similar scenario to last year. We at the end of the day, I think we graduated 17, which for mid-level high school football, graduating 17 is a good size number, and replacing, of those 17, 14, 15 of those were every down contributors, and so we have a really, really unique group of players coming back. Our first 14, 15 players are probably, as returning juniors and seniors, are probably going to be as capable of a group as I've coached in 10, 11 years. That being said, you need depth. You need depth, and you need numbers, because one thing that I did learn this year as a head coach, trying to organize practices and everything, is the phrase you play like you practice.
Yes.
I did not truly appreciate how true that saying is, because Killingly, for example, we're playing Killingly, we're playoff implications on the line, and throughout the week of practice, we were struggling at times to even get the right kind of bodies in place, because they were 7 across with 2 big running backs and then a deep back, and trying to mimic that with bodies, young players, bodies that are on the scout team that cannot necessarily replicate that. If you can't replicate that, we talked about confidence, you're not prepared. If you're not prepared, you're not confident, and that's what showed in the Killingly game, was that we had not in the week been able to successfully mimic the game. And all of these college coaches that I follow, they talk about mimicking the game or playing the game before you play the game, and having different moments in, Coach Saban talks about it all the time, having different moments within your practice, within your week, where you're getting to that level where you're simulating the game. And that way when your players come on the field, they're not shocked, they're not surprised, they're ready for the moment, and when something happens, they've already seen it and they've already reacted to it. And the only way that you can arrive to that is with depth, is with players, with bodies, and building the program out. And looking at our returning roster right now, I think we're somewhere in like the mid-30s, and there's some students out there that had been a part of the program that we're going to obviously want to have come back. We're already kind of hearing grumblings about that based off the success we had. So we're hoping those guys come back and they want to be a part of it. And then as far as the younger kids coming up, we have some great avenues to potentially welcome kids. The magnet pathways we have, the arts, the STEM program, they're great ways for us to start communications with those kids at younger levels. And then, I jokingly say, if I'm the engineering teacher and I'm promoting the STEM program, and I happen to be wearing a New London football shirt, and somebody says, you're Coach Sanchez, like, if that scenario plays itself out, well then, if that ultimately leads to the best opportunity for that young person, where they can be in a pathway program working on a specific focus, and they're also involved in extracurricular activities, whatever that is, that's the experience that you want for a young person. And so I'm definitely all for that. And I think that most coaches I know that I've spoken with that have built programs over the years, they talk about culture. They say culture wins, and that the culture you establish and the feeling around the program, that's the biggest motivator for people to want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Especially young kids, because young kids want to be a part of something good, something successful.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that we've arrived there. I feel like realistically we're on the path there. I don't think we've arrived there yet. I think we're close, and I think a lot of it's going to be determined by these rising seniors, this class of 25. On the heels of this season, what are they going to do as a group? Because there's 14 or 15 of them, and now the baton's been passed to them. The torch has been passed to them, and now what do they do with it? Where's their sense of Whaler pride in all of this? What do they want their legacy to be?
Yeah.
Because they can be in the moment, and they can only think about themselves in this upcoming season and their experience, or they can think about, how are they going to leave the program? How
Sure.
are they going to leave the program after them? Are you going to leave it better than you found it? And I think if they focus on that, and they help us build to a 50, 55, 60-man roster, well, then they're going to reap the benefits, because come October, come November, when we're trying to have those real strong practices, we're going to actually have the people to run quality, play quality football.
Yeah. It's amazing, but you know what's happened? We've hit the time limit here.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot more stuff I want to talk about here. So we're going to have you back, Coach. I really enjoy having you on the program,
Yeah,
and I
appreciate
hope
it,
that
Marty.
we have a chance to get you back soon. And I really appreciate you carving out an hour of your time to be on City Focus. And folks, you've been watching City Focus, and we'll be back live in 2 weeks. I may rerun this one next week because it was a good interview. And in 2 weeks, I have Bill George coming on. He's the retired head football coach at Coast Guard, but he's also written a book, which I have read. And I'm looking forward to discussing his book and his philosophy on life. And with that, we'll say good night and see you in 2 weeks. Good night.